على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue this day of Sunday, January the 6th, 3:34 p.m., 2019, which agrees now with Rabi' al-Thani, the 20th of Rabi' al-Thani, Am 1440, the year 1440 of the Hijrah, after the migration of the Prophet ﷺ. And we discussed the matter, we're going back to Buloogh Al-Maraam, but the great Imam Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who died 852 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. As we concluded the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, we concluded the hadith of on authority of Hakim ibn Muawiyah upon his father Muawiyah, that the order, the command of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is the right of one of us, meaning upon the woman, what is upon her, what is upon him. And we concluded that hadith and we finished it by saying that food and clothing and shelter is the responsibility of the men. Initially, is upon them to carry out these commands and these duties, and not to strike the face, and not to uglify, and not to boycott except in the house. And all this, alhamdulillah, we finished the details of it and the different exceptions of what Ahl al-Ilm mentioned in that regard, or regards to the explanation of the hadith. As we continue the next narration, the authority of Jabir ibn Abdullah, if everyone turns their page. And I want everyone to be mature in regards to these narrations and not to be immature for certain things we'll discuss today. Some people will say, they'll try to make little comments and little remarks under their breath, or little smiles or little gestures. We tell people to be very mature as we talk about these explanations, or talk about these narrations. That will have a little bit, be somewhat explicit to what we're going to speak about today. So we advise one another to be mature, and not to take these matters as something as a joke, or something like to make little giggles or remarks or gestures with their eyes when they hear or when we discuss these narrations. So these narrations, like we said, is to show how comprehensive our religion is, walillahil hamd, to show how Islam is a religion that covers everything, to the point where we know how to be intimate with our spouses and with each other, and to indulge in what is in the bounds of Islam, to what is in regards to satisfying one's pleasure when he's intimate, or when he or she is intimate with their spouse. And Islam even teaches us that. You'll find that in regards to what we were upon prior before Islam, is we did not have these details. So like I remind everyone again, let's be mature in regards to these narrations, and not to take them as a manner of joking or jesting, or making little marks or comments or remarks or little statements under their breath when we indulge, or when we now start to explain these narrations. The hadith, if everyone looks in a book on the authority of Jabir ibn Abdullah, it says, كانت اليهود تقول إذا أتى الرجل امرأته من دبرها من في قبلها كان الولد أحول فنزلت نساؤكم حرث لكم فأتوا حرثكم أن شئتم. When the authority of Jabir ibn Abdullah says that the Jews used to say that if a man was intimate with his wife from behind her in her private part, that the child will come out cross-eyed, as it says in the narration, cross-eyed. So the ayah, Allah Ta'ala revealed the ayah, Nisa'ukum, that your women are a harvest for you, to come to your harvest however you will. And the hadith is muttafaqun alayh, and the wording is for Muslim. So this narration is to show of how Islam explains to us what is in the bounds of what Allah has set, of even in the affairs of intimacy, to show how comprehensive our religion is and how complete it is. And we have narrations that are authentically reported upon the Prophet ﷺ. Well, firstly, in the Book of Allah. Then we have the authentic Sunnah to explain those verses, to know what they mean, and what Allah Ta'ala, how He wanted those verses to be interpreted, as we explained last class. Number one, you'll find the word Yahud. Yahud is Yahud, translated as Jews. We know that during the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, they were living amongst the Muslims at one point in time, before they were exiled. They were exiled due to their treachery and them being perfidious and treacherous, and them attempting murder and assassination of the Prophet ﷺ. But when they were exiled, but before they were exiled, and before they attempted his murder and attempted assassination, and to attempt to poison him, rather the Messenger of Allah was poisoned. Because we know the Jews carried out all these different plots against the Messenger of Allah. We know that the Jews were responsible for trying to kill him, trying to assassinate him, and they were responsible for poisoning him. And he was actually poisoned, alayhi salatu wasalam, by a Jew who was practicing magic. So we know that the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the Jews used to live amongst them in Al-Madinah. And we know that they were the severest of those who showed enmity and injustice and ignorance and foolishness. As we know, we know narrations where they used to disrespect the Messenger of Allah to his face, and they used to be, as they say, snide to the Messenger of Allah. They used to be very snide. A proud person would say, how is they snide? For example, we have a narration where some of them used to come to him and say, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad. To the point where certain narrations, I think it was Sahl ibn Sa'id al-Sa'idi, no, I think it was Thawban. It was Thawban. Mawla Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, for example, one of the Jews came to the sitting after the Messenger of Allah was talking about certain things that would take place on the day of resurrection. So, just a point, just to be summarized, so I don't want to get too long-winded in it. But he said, Assalamu alayka ya Muhammad. Muhammad. He said, فَدَفَعْتُهُ قَالَ ثَوْبَانَ فَدَفَعْتُهُ دُفْعَةً كَادَ يُسْرَعُ مِنْهَا. He said he entered upon the gathering and he said, Ya Muhammad. I think it didn't give salams, but he just said, Ya Muhammad. So the Jews, the companions of the Messenger of Allah knew that the Jews knew he was a prophet. They knew it, based upon the descriptions that came in their book, that there would be a prophet that would be raised from amongst. They gave the land a description that it would be a land of date palm trees. It was said in their book, a land of date palm trees. He will be raised up from them. He will be from amongst that land that is known for having a lot of date palms and a lot of dates, which was described in their book. And the Messenger of Allah used to give answers when the Jews used to ask questions. And they knew the answer. The Jew knew, or the Jews that used to come to the Messenger of Allah asking them questions, the Messenger of Allah used to give answers of exactly how it was written in their book. Exactly how it was written in their book, even though the Messenger of Allah couldn't read or write. We knew that the Messenger of Allah couldn't read and write. And he used to give exact answers exactly how it was written in their book, so they were testing him. It's because they already knew the answer. But they were just trying to prove that he wasn't a prophet. So they used to come with these little slick tests. So they would ask questions and the Messenger of Allah clarified, to the point where some narrations, some of the Jews used to say, no one could know these answers except a person who's truly a prophet. So this to let you know clearly that the Jews knew. But out of jealousy and envy, they wanted the last prophet to be humanity, to be from them. They wanted it to be from them. Not from who Allah wanted it to be, but it had to be from them. At any rate, they used to be sly. They used to say certain things to disrespect, Ya Muhammad. So to the point where even Thawban even pushed him. He said when he disrespected the Messenger of Allah to his face, he said, I pushed him. He said to the point where he's about to fall. So he said, why you push me? He said, Allah taqula ya Rasulullah. Don't you say the messenger of Allah because you know he's the messenger of Allah. So listen to the sly answer he would give. He said, Inni sammaytuhu bismihi alladhi samma bihi ahlu. He said, verily, I called him by the name his family called him. He's being sly. Being conniving and sly. So the messenger of Allah, as we know, used to put up with a lot of harm and a lot of harm from the people. To the point he said humbly, a messenger of Allah, he was sitting, and he said, verily, my name is Muhammad, in which my family did call me that. Fine. So those are just numerous examples of how the Jews used to be treating the messenger of Allah. Alayhi salatu wasalam. Fine. In the area of Al-Madinah, there used to be three tribes of the Jews. One was Banu Nadir with a dad. Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza with a dha, not a dad, but a dha. Banu Qurayza wa Banu Qaynuqa'. Those are the three tribes of the Yahud. Those are the three tribes of the Jews. Those are the three tribes of the Jews. They were Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza, and Banu Qaynuqa'. Banu Qaynuqa'. Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza. Qurayza, I'm going to have to just spell it for you after the class. Banu Qaynuqa'. Qaynuqa'. It's kind of difficult. I'll teach you after the class. طيب. As first in Al-Madinah, that the Jews, like we said, were living amongst the Muslims with the Ansar, from the tribes of the Ansar, from Aus wal Khazraj. And they used to speak to them, and they used to have dealings with them. Even certain business and general business transactions amongst themselves. And also, they had the Torah. The book of the Jews, as we know, was the Torah. And we know that the Torah was altered. Of course, the book that the Jews had, even back then and even now, today. Even though the Jews now today, especially in the country of Palestine, they're not the original Jews. They're something else. They're worshippers that are preparing for the releasement of the Dajjal. But at any rate, that the Torah that they had in their hands was what? Was altered. From the alterations in their book is what you see in this hadith, what you see here in front of you. If you look in your books, what does it say? It said that the Jews said that what? If a man was intimate with his wife from behind her in her private part, meaning in her private part, meaning the vagina, of course. Like I said, we're being explicit, so let's be mature. In the vagina. That the child will come, or he'll be born cross-eyed. So this is to show that there was alterations in the books of the Jews. And this was from one of their alterations. And from those distorted verses that they had. To the point where they used to believe this. As we know that the Jews, or the reason why some people say that the name of the Jews with the Yahud, they say that the Yahud, one of the meanings of why they were called Yahud, because of the verb in the Arabic language, hada Yahudu, which means, linguistically, it means to return. It means to return. Based upon the ayahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna hudana ilayk. Verily we return back to you, or we make tawbah to you. Tawbah means to return back to the truth. But they say hada Yahudu means return, raja'na. Some of them say the reason why they were called Yahud is because it's an ascription to their father Yahuda, who's the son of Ya'qub. Who's the son of Ya'qub. Who's the son of Ya'qub. And that is what's the correct meaning. That's the asah. That's what's the most authentic of why they're called Yahud. because it goes back as an inscription to their father, Yahuda, the son of Yaqub, of Jacob. I think that's how I translate Yaqub, right? Am I right, everyone? So they said that from the alterations of their book, he said from the alterations of their book, as you said, see in the hadith, everyone, it says that if a man was intimate with his wife from behind her, meaning in her private part, in the vagina, he said that the child will be born cross-eyed. As we know, brothers and sisters, keep focused, that any falsehood that was utilized in any shape, form, or fashion, Allah sent down the ayat refuting it and nullifying its invalidity, or if you want to say it's nullifying its effect, that falsehood, that Allah Ta'ala would send a refutation down, or send an ayat down refuting it as a rebuttal to their falsehood. All throughout the Quran, you'll find a lot of ayats. Some of them were revealed directly. And some of them was revealed due to a reason. Some of the majority of the ayats were revealed directly to the Messenger of Allah, meaning that there were certain cases where there were reasons of why the ayats were revealed, and there were certain occasions where the ayat was just directly revealed to the Messenger of Allah. Sisters, are you with me? I hear a little bit of talking. So you'll find that we said, well, did the sister say something? Someone say something? I didn't hear. I heard like a mumble. Exactly. There's description to their father, Yahuda, the son of Yaqub, the son of Jacob. No, the father is Yahuda, who's the son of Yaqub, the son of Yaqub. So, like we said, from the alterations of the Yahud, that they said if a man was intimate with his wife from behind her in her private part, that the child will be born cross-eyed. So we said that any falsehood that Allah Ta'ala, any falsehood that would be brought, and you'll find that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ came with a lot of ayats refuting a lot of the arguments and false beliefs of the people. And Allah would send down ayats demolishing and destroying false notions or false beliefs, which was what? Which was incorrect. And then from the example of that is in this ayah. So you'll find that they said this statement, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down a verse correcting the belief, saying your women is a harvest for you, so be intimate with your harvest however you will. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was basically clarifying and making clear that if a man, number one, that a man can be intimate with his wife in a manner that pleases him, except in two instances, which we'll explain inshallah. That is, a man can be intimate with his wife, and I think I said, let's be very mature, brothers and sisters, mature. We're not trying to be a pervert. We're not trying to be perverted. We're not trying to laugh and make gestures and laugh. Our religion teaches us how, even gives us details of how we can correctly be intimate with our spouses, and this is important to know. So I don't want anyone to take it out of context, people thinking that we're trying to be perverted or anything of that nature. But here in this instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the ayah clarifying that this belief that the Jews believe was incorrect. And that a child is not born cross-eyed because of a man being intimate with his wife in this manner. So you'll find that based upon this ayah, it's a clarity, right? Rather, it's a clarity to show that what? A man can be intimate with his wife from behind her in her private part. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as the intimacy is in the private part, of course, then he can be intimate with her in any direction he please. That is what is what? In the boundaries of the religion, what is acceptable. A person might say, let's just say now a child, if he's born with this type of discrepancy, with his eyes cross-eyed, is it permissible to get it fixed? Or is it considered from what is unlawful to now have it corrected because of beautification? You understand what I'm saying? You understand the question? Exactly. For the most part, we say it's permissible generally to have it corrected. One can have it corrected. For number one, before I get into this, number one, keep in mind that the origin, of course, of correcting certain matters physically in the human body, pertaining to what's done medically with surgery, as long as the intention is not, of course, in regards to beautification. Rather, it's to remove a harm, or if it's so uglified that the surgery will remove the ugliness of a certain affair, of a certain matter, which I'll discuss and give examples of. Don't worry. Like for example, let me give examples. Like for example, the example is right here in the hadith. Before I give the other examples, this in the hadith. A person has their eyes what? They're born with their eye going one direction, the other eye is straight, or both eyes are moving in different directions. They're cross-eyed. We say here that it is permissible to have it corrected with the condition that it doesn't bring more harm. A person would say, what do they mean? Meaning, we know back in the times of old, alhamdulillah, from certain aspects, they didn't have the advanced technology of we have today. So if they did surgery back then, it would cause more what? Damage. You understand, everyone? Rather than today, it could be corrected without it being what? With actual good results, and which would not cause more distortion or more harm. So we say, based upon that today, then it's permissible to have it what? Corrected. Is it clear what I'm saying? It's permissible to have it corrected. I even find a person would say, well, where do you get this from? I'll read quickly even what the great Imam, Shaykh Uthaymeen, even mentioned in this regard. He said this. He says, in regards to what I'm discussing now, فالحاصل أن الحوى العيب ولكن من نعمة الله علينا أننا في هذا الزمن فتح الله على الأطباء أن يعدلوا هذا الحول بعملية يجرونها ويوازون بين جانبي العين حتى تكون العين متوسطة. He says, alhamdulillah, he says, we know al-hawal is a aib. It's a type of discrepancy. It's a type of blemish, or it's a type of discrepancy. And from the bounties of Allah that He's bestowed upon us in this time, Allah has opened up upon doctors to straighten this out, to straighten this crookedness out, with surgery that they do. And they can now balance out between the two sides of the eye, to where the eye now is in the middle and everything's set straight. So a person would say, is this type of surgery permissible? He said, yes. He said with the condition that there's not going to be a harm. Because he said the intent behind this surgery is to remove the blemish. It's to remove the blemish. And it's not for what? And he said that it's not from the aspect of tattoos, and it's not from the aspects of one now trying to separate the teeth for beautification. He said we can't say it's from that aspect. What is he talking about, everyone? he's talking about, as we know, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ for the women who the Messenger of Allah cursed. We said the women that get tattoos, or men get tattoos also. Men that get tattoos, and also women that, back in the time of the Messenger of Allah, the type of form of beautification that the women used to carve their teeth a certain way, and it would be a form of beautification. And also the cutting of the eyebrows, and, like we said, tattoos, and also installing or putting fake hair, all that in which we know the Messenger of Allah cursed those women. And also the women that used to put their hair in the form of camel humps that sticked up in the air, and women that used to wear clothes, but it would show their adornments or show their private parts, meaning they would be clothed and still naked. So the Messenger of Allah talked about all these women and how they are cursed because of how they entice. But a person would say, isn't straightening out the eyes, isn't that from that aspect? We say no, it's not. Rather, this is a form of removing a blemish. Removing a blemish. So it could be set straight. And it's not from the aspect of what? Of the narration talking about tattoos and what have you. Tayyib, a question might come from our brothers and sisters now. They will say, is it permissible now to have a tattoo wiped out? Or, as some questions was asked for me, I have a tattoo with my boyfriend or whoever's name was on it, or husband's name. I said husband's name. But if your husband told you to get a tattoo with his name on it, wow. But at any rate, whatever they had before Islam, they say I had a boyfriend and he told me to get his name put on me and I got a tattoo with his name on it. Right. So now they would say, can I get the tattoo, now another tattoo, on top of it removing his name? Is that permissible or not? I heard some sisters say yes, some sisters say no. I'm glad, alhamdulillah, I'm glad some sisters say yes. I'm pleased with this because it shows that everybody's working, their minds are working. So I don't feel no type of way when I hear some sisters say yes, some sisters say no. That's a good thing. I'm sorry, what was it? Some sisters said what? Yes? What was? Jade. Good answer. Some say yes, some say no. Fine. The answer to this, I asked years ago, this was probably 2004, when I was sitting with Sheikh Ubaid, Fadilatul Walid, from my fathers, Sheikh Ubaid ibn Abdullah al-Jabiri, when I was sitting with him, who I'm alhamdulillah honored to say is one of my fathers, that he said that it's not permissible to have another tattoo put on another tattoo. He said, however, it's permissible to have a surgery done on it where it's removed without any harm. He says, if the tattoo is removed while causing more blemishes on the skin or causing more harm, then just leave it. Is it clear what I said? I'll say it one more time, because some people are online who's going to say AbdurRazzaaq said you could keep your tattoos. That's not what I said. I'll say it again. He says it's not permissible to have another tattoo put on another tattoo. Another tattoo put on another tattoo is not permissible. However, if one can have surgery where it can be removed without it causing more harm or damage, or it's going to cause some type of more blemish, or cause the skin to be more, where the skin would now, or the appearance now will be ruined, or cause more of a more blemish, where the skin now will be, or the appearance will be even more uglified or ugly. If one is able to do surgery without this happening, then he can do that. He or she can do that. But however, if it's going to cause more harm and scarring or scar tissue or more of a blemish, then leave it. Then leave it as it is. Is it clear? Because I did hear that some brothers and sisters had told me, I had a name of my girlfriend on my arm, so I got another tattoo on top of the name to have it removed. And it's incorrect. It's incorrect. So they got another tattoo, put on another tattoo to wipe out the name of her ex, whoever. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. You'll find that Shaykh Uthaymeen said in this regard, he said, وَلِهَذَا أَذِنَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم للرجل الذي قطع أنفه أن يتخذ أنفا من ورق. And I'll say this quickly. He said there's a narration. A person would say, well, what's the delay for this in Kitab al-Sunnah, that something could be removed for the remove of something that's a discrepancy or blemish or what have you. What's the delay for this? He said the delay for this is when the Messenger of Allah had gave permission to a man that when his nose was cut off, it was a Sahabi, radiallahu anh, his nose was cut off. His nose was cut off. So the Messenger of Allah told him to take a nose from at first, using some type of paper to put in its place. He says until it started to make some type of stench or it had a smell. He says until he told the man to now replace the nose with a golden nose, a golden piece in its place. Why? Because in order to remove the what? The blemish. Because if a person look at that, that's kind of it's a look that's not appealing or attractive, right? So he commanded the person now to take an anf or a nose from gold. He says, and if this is the case, this is what the fuqaha and ahl ilm were talking about. He says, for example, during the times of old, for example, a person would have like hemorrhoids back in the times of old, and if it was cut off, it would cause more harm. It would cause more what? More harm medically and physically to the individual, and a lot more pain, of course. He said, because in that particular time, there was a danger. He said, but however, alhamdulillah, in these days and times, things and affairs have become more technologically advanced. So now that the danger has been removed. So now things in surgery can be done without causing more harm to the person's body. For example, even back in the day, they had surgery where women used to likewise have a C-section, but they make it the last option because of the danger. But in these days and times, women have the C-section done and they survive the surgery without any problem. He says in that time when it was danger, but now due to the fact that it's removed, then it can be done. Similar to that, for example, a person might have, let's say, for example, certain people are born with 6 fingers or 7 fingers, or someone with no knowledge would say, AbdurRazzaaq, oh, that's not permissible. You can't get your 6th finger cut off. You can't get a person got 7 fingers. You can't have that cut off or what have you. It's not permissible. We say if it's a blemish, if it's something that it's when a person looks at it, it's a blemish where it's uglified or appearance, then a person can have it surgically removed, and it's permissible to do that. A person will say, what about breast augmentation? Breast augmentation, or excuse me, not augmentation, breast reduction. Breast reduction. Women get their breasts reduced, not augmentation. Augmentation is usually for beauty reasons. But anyway, reduction. Is it permissible for a woman to do this? We say yes if it's causing harm to her back. If there's a harm, her intention is not to, for example, for beautification, but it's to have the harm removed. If it's causing a lot of pressure on her back, it is causing her to walk heavy, or their back is a lot of pain. I've heard different reasons. Some women have come to me and asked me that, or sisters have asked me, is it permissible to have my breast reduced? And we say that if the intention behind it is not for beautification, but rather for medical reasons, because it's causing harm to you physically, that it's permissible to do it. So the hukum yaduru ma'a illatihi wujudan wa adaman. So we say now, as ahl fiqh, in usul fiqh, that they say that the hukum or the ruling, that it dwells around the reason for it, either it being there or not being there. What do we mean? Meaning during the times of old, when the danger was there, it wasn't permissible to get this surgery, because we knew that technology wasn't as advanced back then. So it would be haram to do those type of surgeries. But now, due to the fact that the illah or the reason for not having a surgery being done has now been removed. The danger has been removed, so now the hukum changes. So a person can have it done in order to remove that particular blemish or that particular harm. Is it clear, everyone? طيب. So now we go back to the hadith. Go back to the hadith that said that the Jews said that particular notion, or they said that their statement, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the ayah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the ayah in order to belie the Jews. And for the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belied them, Allah wanted to show that this matter is what? Is permissible. They wanted to show that it's permissible and that the woman, you keep in mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word harth. Harth means harvest. Meaning the place where there will be some type of what? Something that will come back, meaning a baby. When usually a person plants a seed, the harvest is that the plant will what? Grow. So that's the key word, everyone. The key word is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word harvest. Everybody knows, and more than likely, that if a man is intimate with a woman in her private part, that the harvest is the what? Is the child. That it will what? That's the fruits that it will bear. So it's permissible to be intimate with a woman in any type of manner in that way of what will cause harvest, meaning what will bear a child. Which is a clear hadith, which is a clear evidence to proof, everyone, is that a person cannot be intimate with a place that doesn't cause harvest. Meaning of the anus, and also refuting homosexuality. Because the anus is not a place of harvest. The anus is not a place of what? Of harvest. And every homosexual out there and every person knows you could be, if you intimate with a person that way, then no baby will come out, ever. That is agreed upon. A person would say, so these are a person would say, what about enjoying a person in other affairs? If everyone can read behind or in between the lines, in other matters. For example, when a woman is on her mens and a woman is on her what they call it, postnatal bleeding after she has a baby. What about those matters? So firstly, we extract from this hadith the impermissibility of coming to a woman in that manner, meaning the anus, of course, but he can be intimate from behind her, in the private part. In the private part, and likewise, that the private part of the woman, of the vagina, is considered the place of harvest, because that's where children are bared, of course. What about now the other ways a person would say? And I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. And this is where the message of Allah made it clear in the hadith of Aisha, where everyone I'm sure is familiar with in Ramadan, where Aisha, when she was on her mens, and she was on or postnatal bleeding for women in certain circumstances, after they just had a baby, they would command her that she have an izar, or a way that it would be covered up. And we know in these days and times, alhamdulillah, the women have other ways that they hide their menstrual cycle, where they have their cloth or the clothing, or the other different types of sanitary ways that women keep themselves cleanly so the man doesn't see what? Doesn't see the blood during that cycle. You'll find that Aisha radiallahu anha used to take a what? As we know, an izar, and cover up her private part during her menstrual cycle, which is to show how the sahabiyat used to what? Do their best to keep the vision of the man from seeing a woman on her mens, meaning to hide the blood. To hide the blood. So the message of Allah, when he would be intimate, not as far as in the private part, but he used to touch Aisha in other ways. In other ways as a form of pleasure. While she was on her menstrual cycle, meaning on top of her, he would fondle with her and do other things. Which was to show an example of how what? During the time of a woman's when she's on a menstrual cycle, it's permissible for a man to do other things other than what? Being intimate in the vagina itself while she's on her menstrual cycle. And I think everyone gets the hint. Is it clear, everyone? So what we're saying is, those are the only things that's not permissible, is that it's not permissible to be intimate in that manner as far as the anus, and as far as when a woman is on her mens, and her postnatal bleeding after her pregnancy. And that also, that a woman should do her best to hide the blood from the husband. As it comes in the narration of Aisha. He said that she would use the izar to cover up her private part. Meaning so that the man would not see something that would cause him not to want to touch her or be intimate with her or not want to be around. Or that would cause some type of way that it would cause some type of harm in the relationship. Or some type of, not adversity, but we will say some type of harm where he would not want to be intimate. Because some men out there, if they see that, it would cause them to have some type of feelings. And they would not want to see that. Which is also in other ways where, I'll talk about later, that should a man be in the surgery room while she's having a baby, that's something different, in which I'll discuss. But Ahl Ilm say in the regard that if it's going to cause problems in the marriage, then a man should not be in the room while she's having a baby. If it's going to cause problems in the marriage. Because certain men, if they see that, it will cause some type of what? It will cause some type of mindset where he would not want to what? Be intimate with her. So again, and I'll say this again, if the man sees that, or she's in surgery, or she's having a baby, the woman needs to be honest with her husband and say that if you see this, is this going to cause you now to feel some type of way physically about me? If the man says yes, then you need to be mature and let him leave out the surgery room. Since women need to, don't be emotional now. Oh, you need to be in the room. You're the father of the child. No. This is right up to the man. If the man knows, he knows himself better than you know himself. He's being honest with you. This is why I tell women now that if a person's telling you who they are, you need to accept it. If they're telling you and being honest, you need to work with them. I'm being honest with you. If I see this is going to mess with my mind a bit. And I might not want to be intimate with you because I keep painting this picture of seeing, and we know how it looks where a woman is given birth to a baby. Oh no, it's natural. It's natural. We know it's natural, but Allah has created certain men different. And if a man is telling you clearly, listen, I'm going to be affected if I see that, then you need to accept it and just say, okay, babe, leave out the room then. Leave out the room, and then it'll get handled, and I'll see you later when the baby is born. Some men are different. Some men say, no, babe, I love it. I'm like, hey, I don't mind. It's not no big deal to me. No big deal. Now, this is where I'm telling the man to be honest. Because a man on his first experience usually don't know what he's embarking upon until he sees it. Then he sees it, he goes, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But in this case, if he knows from himself that he knows he's able to tolerate it, then, like I said, it goes back to his choice. But certain women, well, alhamdulillah, a lot of women, there's certain women that were born where they was cultivated and they was nourished in certain ways, especially women that have been taught by certain mothers, listen, you shouldn't let men see certain things about yourself. Certain things, from those things is your mens. Don't let a man see your menstrual cycle. Don't let a man see the blood. Don't let a man see that. Are the sisters with me? And certain women were taught, listen, don't let a man see you in a manner when you're not pregnant. As I said from the Athar of the Salaf, and I brought this, and I think when I was down South Philly about 6 months ago, that the mother gave advice to the daughter, saying, don't ever let your husband see you in a manner that's not acceptable, except in certain instances. Of course, you know. He said, and she gave the exception, of course, when you're pregnant. But she said to hide from your husband as much as possible, when certain affairs and from them was the blood of the mens. Not to let your husband see that. Try to hide it as much as you're able. And not to let your husband see you in a manner whereas when you're having a baby. Where we know the scene of that might psychologically cause a man a little shock to him to see a woman in that manner. So what is suggested is that, like we said, to investigate. If a man says clearly to you, sister, I can't look at that. It might cause some problems in our marriage down the line. Okay, you need to let him leave. Don't ask him why. You need to fear Allah. You need to be in the room with me. You need to be here for your child when it comes into the world. No. The brother's being honest with you, sister. He's telling you this is going to affect the marriage later on. Well, why? I don't understand. It's not for you to understand. Allah created him this way. This is his mind. Everyone is different. And we need to accept everybody who they are. If a person is telling you who they are, believe them. Don't try to change his way of thinking. He's not doing nothing haram. So don't try to use kitab and sunnah. He's doing something that you know, clearly in my mind, this is going to affect me. And this might cause problems in our marriage later on down the line. So please kindly let me leave. Same thing for the women. Certain women, now let's pray vice versa. Certain women say, listen, babe, I love you, but don't be in the room when you see this. Some men, no, I'll be here for you. No, I'm staying. Listen, babe, I love you. You need to leave the room. You don't need to see this. I don't want you to see certain instances that you'll see intestines and blood and other things and feces. I'm just being frank. This does happen when women have babies. Yes, it does. Sometimes you'll see intestines. Sometimes you'll see feces. Sometimes you'll see pee coming out because we know that the actual, what do you call it? Astaghfirullah, too late. The actual, I forgot the name of it in English. As far as the biblical cord, the actual fluid that comes out, that's urine. Not the placenta, the fluid that's coming out. The amniotic fluid. The amniotic fluid is it's mixed with urine. It's mixed because how is the child going to the bath? Of course, we know God placenta, but sometimes it's actually in the womb. So this is what I'm saying, brothers and sisters. Some women are strong. They'll tell their husband, listen, you need to get out. You understand, everyone? I don't want you to see me in this manner. No, babe, I want you to know it's natural. Listen, I'm suggesting that you leave. I don't want you to see me like this. And we know women of the past, they were more dignified as far as being honorable and trying to let their husband always see them in a womanly, feminized fashion. They were very feminine. And these days at times, it's everything is just buck wild. But anyway, everything, like we said, ya ma'ashal ikhwa wal akhawat, this is just to show and summarize, in these certain predicaments, investigate and ask and be honest with your spouse. Don't try to Brody, no, you need to be here, and the person's trying to be honest with you, or what have you. Accept them for who they are and accept their decision and respect it. Especially when a person wants to try to preserve their marriage and their relationship. Don't try to ask them in their mind, how are you like this and why are you like this? Don't ask why, this is how they are and they're telling you this. They're being honest. And this is when we need to learn how to be what? How to be honest with each other when a person is being frank and telling you who they are. And the statement is true. If a person tells you who they are, believe them. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I ain't even realized the time. We have to stop here. We'll continue next week, inshallah. Because it's almost time for Maghrib, but not too long. Right, we'll stop here. Any questions about the lesson? It is almost time for Maghrib soon. Any questions about the lesson, sisters? Mm-hmm.